Well, when truth comes, falsehood perishes, for falsehood by its nature is bound to perish. وَقُلْ جَعَلَ حَقُّ وَظَهَكَ الْبَاطِلُ إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا. Well, Christian Prince once again, as usual, he's attacking the age of consent of marriage of Sayyidah Aisha, just as anybody has been doing. These things are cake. The Muslims have answered this over and over. Unless you've made your mind to be primitive and you don't want to even accept any source from anywhere, you've just made your mind to be thinking not outside the box. You understand? Well, so let's talk about history. We as Muslims don't just make a mockery of anything, and we don't attack anything unless we have fact. So let's talk about history and what history has to offer us about the ages of marriage. You understand? And is the slogan, inshallah.
Shabir Ali, he come round and he want to ask for your hand, or Zakir Naik. Zakir Naik is 54 years old. Your daughter is 6 years old, and he came to marry your daughter according to Allah teaching. Are you willing to do that?
I would advise her to wait.
Or you advise your 6 years old to, guys, she will advise her 6 years old daughter to wait. Are you serious?
Yeah, which means.
But your daughter, she is 6 years old. She don't know even what marriage means. What do you mean you will advise her to wait? No, hold on. You know, when you say I will advise my daughter who is 6 years old to wait, I mean, are you serious? She is 6 years old daughter. She is eating chocolate and she have ton chocolate in her face. This is the girl you want to advise her to wait to get married later?
well,
Christian Prince, as usual in his antics, when you call on his show, what he will do is that he'll be playing with your mind. He won't give you the space to talk. You understand? This is why I'm saying I'm not going to call on his show, but when the fire hits him, he will obviously call for debate. And when the debate is called, this is where we will have a formal debate on a neutral ground with a moderator, and also there will be a time given to the first speaker and then the second speaker. The debaters will come, the cross-examinations will then come. You understand? If there will be then there will be a phone-in segment whereby people will be calling in for set discussions. And this wouldn't be done on my platform nor on his platform, inshallah. If you're watching me, follow me on Facebook, on TikTok, and also on YouTube, inshallah. Let's talk about the age of consent of marriage. The whole show is about Sayyidah Aisha, and this, we are doing justice to it. Now, you will agree with me that the Europeans, the Americans, are the ones that are mostly attacking the age of consent of marriage of Sayyidah Aisha between Prophet Muhammad and his wife Sayyidah Aisha. Now, even though, like I said, there are sources in which we'll be bringing you, if time permits us today, so that you will see that she was more than that. But even if you are to agree on the consent that she was 6 and he consummated it at the age of 9, just as Christian Prince was making a mockery of this Muslim woman that Zakir Naik is 55 years, Shabir Ali and so forth and so on. Will she marry him if she is 6 years today? This is illogical and it does not make sense, because you wouldn't want to eat what they were eating 1,400 years ago, and you wouldn't ask questions what they were doing 1,400 years ago. Now let's take this one after the other. The age of consent of marriage prior to the history of the 20th century has been regulated on many occasions. There are instances when the age of consent of marriage was 7. There are instances when it was 18, and there are instances when it was 12. There are instances when it became 10. You understand? So, assuming those at the era when the age of consent of marriage was 7, and you got married, you married your wife when she was 7. There was no crime. There was nothing evil you've committed, and there is nothing like rape. There is nothing like anything at that time or that particular period. You understand? So, when the age of consent then changes from that period to 20 or 25 today, assuming you wouldn't blame people who married women at age 10, age 5 during their time that they raped them or they did something evil, or be questioning your children. Will you marry someone who is who is 53 years yet you are 10 years old? Will you marry the person? Other than that, it's like you are not being honest in your delivery. You understand? So let's take this one after the other. According to Professor Richard Watley and Professor Stephen Smallbone, they both said that prior to 1900s, girls marry very young. Girls marry very, very young. And there is also a book called Sex and Society. This book, which is called Sex and Society, have this caption for you where it says, until the late 20th century, USA age of consent law specifically names males as perpetrators and females as victims, following English law in which the age was set at 12 in 1275 and lowered to 10 in 1576. Age of consent in the American colonies were generally set at 10 or 12. The laws protected female virginity, which at the time was considered a valuable commodity until marriage. The theft of a girl's chastity was seen as a property crime against her father and future husband. If two people were married and had sex, no matter what their age, no crime was committed because a woman was her husband's property. In practice, too, the consent laws only protected white females, as many non-white females were enslaved or otherwise discriminated against by the legal system. This is coming from a book called Sex and Society. I didn't say this, like I said, unless you are not learned enough or unless you are here to make just an excuse or be screaming your veins out without any fact. You understand? Just as Christian Prince has been doing. Empty-headed, making noise all over. And this was written by William I. Thomas. You understand? This is not coming from UTI Dawa. It is coming from sources. So let's talk with facts and let's not just come out and be making mockeries without any proper evidence. We need to have a proper... when you're making a proper point or you are making... you want to attack someone, at least be honest and fair when you are making your point, you understand? So Richard A. Posner, he is a Chief Justice of the Court of Appeals in the 7th Circuit, Chicago. Catherine B. Silberg is also Associate Professor at Boston University School of Law. Now, they also say that before 1900, age of consent was 10 years old. Before 1900, age of consent was 10 years old. The law governing the age of consent has changed dramatically in the United States during this century. Most states codified a statutory age of consent during the 19th century, and the usual age was 10. I did not say this. This tends to, I'm not the one who is saying this. Again, the Scottish law prior to 1900 by Sir John Cummins and Stuart Kate or Kite, they also say, by the law of Scotland, a woman cannot contribute sponsalia before her age of 7 years. When you read IRO 343 I-20, but by the common law, persons may marry at the age CO late 33A, and upon such marriage, the wife shall be endowed if attain the age of 9 years of whatsoever age her husband be, but not before the age of 9 years. COL 33A. So it's so pathetic. This is just about before 1900, prior to 1900. These things were happening. It is legal. There was no crime. There was no crime at all. You understand? And should we go forward? There is another book written by a professor of sociology called Anthony Joseph Paul Curtis. He says that a father, a 50-year-old man, being with a girl under 10, being intimate under United States law was legal until the mid-1960s. And he writes, in 1962, the American Law Institute recommended that the legal age of consent to sex, that is the age below which sex is defined as statutory rape, be dropped in every state to age 10. Kachadorian and Lund, 1972, verse 439. In fact, until the mid-1960s, the legal age of consent in Delaware was 7. Kling, 1965 to 2016. So a 50-year-old man could legally have sexual intercourse with a 7-year-old boy or a girl. Maureen Dabach, she is a writer and also an author. She was born in Michigan. She serves as a Virginia Supreme Court family mediator. She echoes the same statement as previous authors have already said. She says, the 19th century, the minimum age of consent for marriage for sexual intercourse in most American states was 10 years old. In Delaware, it was only 7. So, who has been feeding these boys, these small boys, the ideas that the age of consent of marriage at the time of Aisha was wrong? Who has been feeding these guys? Based on which criteria are you saying it is wrong? Now, before I come to the Bible aspect of it, let's add some more salt to the injuries. According to Seneca Eloit, he says the statute governing the minimum age under which sex cannot be legally consensual and the laws concerning marriage and workers' rights were modified to reflect this changing discourse around childhood. Age of sexual consent, for example, rose from 7 during colonial times to 10 to 12. And eventually as high as 14 during the 18th century. By the late 1800s, the average age of consent in the United States was 14 across the nation. However, the age of consent was raised slowly, unevenly, and with great reluctance. So, when you read the American Bar Association Journal, August 1966, it says in 1275, English common law criminalized statutory rape sex between a man and a woman below the age of consent, which was first set at 12 years. 1576 common law age of consent lowered to 10 years. 1700 to 1800 statutory rape acts, common law adopted in the United States. States set the age of consent at 10 or 12. You understand? So we are not the ones making all this or bringing all this fact. In fact, Caroline Coker, she says, or he says, at what age is a person capable of making an informed decision about whether or not engaging in sex? Would it be 7, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, or 21? Over the last 300 years, all the age lists above were thought to be the magic age at which one could make a sex decision. And all the ages listed above have at various times been inscribed into law at the age of consent to sex. So, since age of consent do vary and the puberty do vary periodically, and it will depend on generation which you are in, you have no moral right and value to say, because Sayyidah Aisha, because there are some sources that is saying Sayyidah Aisha was married at the age of 6 and was consummated at the age of 9, and so therefore your prophet is also and so insulting the prophet here and there when they are in the books and when it was a norm back then. You are not communicating, bro. You are not communicating. You are not communicating. So we will take these things one after the other and then school each other, inshallah. Let's look at the primary sources of age of consent of marriages in various countries from 1880 to 1920 until 2007. Australia, 1880, in Australia around 1880 was 14, 1920 was 14, 2007 was 14. In Belgium, in fact, you can be 0 years and you can be married. In 1920, it was 16. In Belgium, it was 16. Bulgaria, it was 13, and then 14. In Denmark, it was 12, and 15. In England, it was 13, 16, and 16. In Finland, it was 12. It was 0, from 0, and then 12, and then it came to 16. That is how the age of consent. In fact, in Delaware, I'm counting from 1880 to 1920, coming to then 2007. Then From France, 13, 13, 15. Germany, 14, 14, 14. Greece, 0. Then 12 to 15. Italy, 0, 16 and 14. Mozambique, 15, 15 and 16. Norway, 0, 16, 16. Portugal, 12, 12 and 14. Romania, 15, 15, 15. And Russia, it is 10. It came to 14. Now, in around 2007, it came to 16. In Scotland, it was 12, 12. And then it came to 16. In Spain, it was 12, 12 until it came to 13. In Sweden, 15, 15. And then 15 in Switzerland. Then zeros, it's from zeros, any age at all. Then it came to 16, then 16. Turkey, 15, 15, and then 16 or 18. Argentina, 12, 12 and 13, then from 0. Then that is how it has been. When you reach United States, it was in Alabama, it was 10, and then it went to 16 and 16. In Alaska, it was 0, then it reached 16, then it went to 16. In Arizona, it was 12, it went to 18, then it came to 18. In Arkansas, it was 10, it went to 16 and 16. In California, it was 10, then it went to 18, then 18. In Colorado, it was 10, it went to 18, then 15. In Connecticut, it was 10, it went to 16 and 16. District of Columbia was 12, it went to 16, and then 16 again. In Delaware, it was 7, then it went to 16 and 16. In Florida, it was 10, then it went to 18 and 18. Georgia, 10, 14 and 16. Idaho, 0, 0 can marry. Then it reached to 16. In Hawaii, it was Hawaii, it was 10, and it was 0, 0, then 16. In Idaho, it was 10, then 18 to 18. In Illinois, it was 10, then 18 to 18. This has been the norm back then. It was norm back then. There is nothing like so and so, rip to so and so. So let's look at some historical aspect of it and come back. Now, according to Tractate Sophorim Hosafa, he says there are two traditions. The first is coming from Seda Olam Raba'a, volume 1, who is saying she was 14 years old. Then Tractate Sophorim is also saying she was 3 years and 3 days when she left her father's house as a wife. You understand? She was 14 years old when she married, let's agree, but she was 3 years and then 3 days old when she was married, according to other tradition. But let's take this one after the other. Let's look at this in this point of perspective. Sarah gave birth to Isaac at the age of 90. When you read Genesis 17, you will see. And Isaac was in his 30s when the incident of Mount Moriah occurred with his father. About Genesis 22 is what I'm talking about, even though we are saying it is Ishmael. But let's take this biblically, because I'm doing it biblically. Now, immediately after Isaac and Abraham's incident on Mount Moriah, Rebekah was born. In Genesis 22, verse number 20 to 24, it says, sometime later, Abraham was told, Milcah is also a mother. She has borne sons to your brother, Nahor. Uz, the firstborn, Buz is brother. Kemuel, the father of Aram. Kezd, Hazo, Pildash, Jidlaf, and Bethuel. Bethuel became the father of Rebekah. This is when Rebekah was born, you understand. So this is how. Around this time, Rebekah has been born, and Isaac was already Oluman then. Now, as soon as she was mentioned, somewhere in Genesis 23, verse 1 to 3, you will see that Sarai was 127 years old when Isaac was 37 years old then, because in Genesis 23, verse 1 to 3, that was what happened. That was what happened. Genesis 25, that was when Sarai even died. So at the time of Sarah's death, Isaac would have been around 37 years old, because Sarah is 90 years older than Isaac. You understand? Nabina Isaac alayhi salam. So Isaac married Rebekah at the age when Isaac was 40. When you read Genesis chapter number 25, verse 20, you will see this over there. Now, so this would show from the Bible that Rebekah was only 3 years old when Isaac was married to her. So the source that is saying she was 3 years and 3 days old could be proven. And we have proven this. But let's put that aside. Mary, Sayyidah Nana Maryam, the mother of Jesus Christ, alayhi salatu wasalam. According to some sources, it is saying she was 12 years old when she was engaged to Joseph, who was 90 years old. Some sources are saying she was just 9 years old when she was engaged to Joseph, who was 90 years old. Then David. When King David was very old, in 1 Kings chapter 1, verse number 1, we read down, it says, when King David was very old, he could not keep warm, even when they put covers over him. So his attendant said to him, let us look for a young virgin, small girl, around 9, 10, because the Jews are found. When you read 1 Kings chapter number 113a, 113a, it says the Jews were fond of marrying small girls around 12, 10, and 9, probably 11 and 13. So let's look for a young girl to serve the king and take care of him. She can lie beside him so that our Lord, the king, may be warm. She can, in other words, have sex with him so that he will be warm. Since no amount of clothes can keep him warm. Pursue. Stop doing this. And learn. Let's learn. Let's all learn. And then upgrade our level of thinking. Marriage, age of consent of marriage will change and will continue to change. You understand? That is why Islam says that when a woman reaches puberty, that this says, when Sayyidah Aisha has reached puberty, she was then taken to the Prophet. She was then taken to the Prophet by a parent. You understand? One day I'll take a time to take you through other sources that is saying she was more than 9 years old when she was consummated or even married. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, Zana Company Limited, in fact, uwe goodie, uwe copper, uwe silver, uwe gold, au pese winsiesieno, when electroplating, uni baby yako, against Zana Company Limited, uwe goodie, upese wundane sene upe, onye silver chain, onye golden chain, onye golden ring, then upese onye no, Zana besesieno edi amount. In fact, what organizes sports, upe cup, and upe medals, bida tu omukomu, Zana Company Limited, bet to me edi amount, any kind of jewelry at all. Zana Company, and a young Juma. Zana, ewa himfa. Here Zana, ewa nungwa, behind Fidelity Bank. Raviko, ewa, and a Zana, ewa. Number 7 friends Zana, 0240 481 568. 568 0240 481 568 and then 0248 42 44 93 0248 42 44 93. We are Henny, we are Penny, we are Goody, we are Catesia, we are Bugger, we are Golden Chain, or a wrist banner, or then a one, a gold, copper, silver, a jewel in Quadia. When person yen CSC no from Biarano, able to me aye ediamo. Into contact Zana Company Limited na omamwao inshallah. And you ain't never also Annabi Muhammad Sayyidun Annabi Muhammad Adin Annabi Muhammad Buhudin Annabi Muhammad Muqaddamu Annabi Muhammad Azizun Annabi Muhammad Fadilun Annabi Muhammad Mufaddilun Annabi Muhammad Muhammad